government not bore any
Right, so
responsibility?
let's listen to Simon Harris again. So he's asked here, I think by Gript, correspondent from Gript, about the role that the government play in what you see in Coolock.
Does the government not bore any responsibility for what erupted there in Coolock? You said you don't want to hear about this.
Look at the grin. When he's asked if he has any responsibility for this, just look at the way he's looking at this person speaking now. Look at the grin. It's a, how dare you even ask me this question?
Whataboutery. But do you accept any responsibility for what unfolded?
He caught himself there, so the training kicked in. Look cordial, look like you're open to these questions. Don't look at the stare on him. This is, I would not trust this character.
There yesterday in relation to the engagement.
No, so before she's even finished the question, he's defensive. Instantly defensive. He's grimacing. Look at the stare. His neck is down. His head is down to cover his neck. And the stare. Look at that, like. And the little smirk then a couple of seconds ago. So he's instantly on the defensive before the question's even finished. Granted, it's a question in parts, but he's defensive.
Relation to how it was handled by the department and also then Minister O'Gorman.
Little roll of the eyes.
I just ask, why are contractors going into places earmarked for accommodation for asylum seekers in the middle of the night?
Perfectly fair question. Why are you bringing in construction workers in the middle of the night?
What were the efforts made to defuse the situation which was blockading that particular site? Can you just detail exactly what engagement there?
You can see in his physical reactions, he has no interest in this. He sees this as a totally stupid question, and he wants to just dismiss it. But he knows he's a job to do as well.
What efforts were made by the department to defuse that situation before yesterday?
So you have a job to ask the questions. My comments are anyway directed at you, but I find that line of comment put forward by some to be quite extraordinary.
Okay. So, a journalist has asked him, Simon Harris, the Taoiseach of Ireland, if the government bear any responsibility to what happened in Coolock. And if not, or if so, could you please explain to me what the levels of interaction were, what the efforts that this government made to assuage the animosity or the negative feelings of the locals of Coolock? And he finds this to be an extraordinary line of questioning. For what reason?
What we saw last week was absolutely nothing to do with engagement with the local community about migration policy. What we saw last.
So what you can see they're doing is the media are working hand in hand with the government here, and the government are working hand in hand with the Gardaí, which is illegal. The Gardaí are operating as political security here at this rate in Ireland. And what you're seeing here is governments deciding that they're going to take a piece of land and they're going to do what they want with it, regardless of what the locals say. And I'm sick of even repeating myself here, but the problems persist, so they need to be named in time, okay? So this man is deciding that he's bringing in these unending, seemingly, stream of men into this country. And when the locals say they don't want that, well, the Gardaí get called there then. And the Gardaí get sent in, and the Gardaí get sent in to disrupt it, whether that's the motivation or the intention. This is the outcome. The Gardaí are going in and they're disrupting for months on end local protests that start out peaceful. They start out with a bit of confusion of the people, and they want their voices to be heard, okay? But the government don't listen. They plough ahead, they steamroll people, and then people get a little bit annoyed about that. So they start ratcheting up the verbals, and they start ratcheting up the actions, some of them do, okay? And what happens over time is when you refuse to listen to people, they become a little bit more animated in how they express themselves because they're demanding attention. They're demanding to be listened to. And the government and the media, they continue to spout false stories about these people. They try and... There was a few of them up in court the other day, and the media listed their name, their address, and their job. How disgraceful is that? When there's foreigners who are snatching children in the streets of Ireland and their names don't get released to the papers. This is absolutely disgraceful. And I would imagine that the person who listed those names and addresses, if any violence is to fall on the people listed on their person or on their house, I would hold that journalist personally responsible.
It was lawlessness, criminality, and there's one group.
Okay, so what he's doing here is you could take any protest around the country. You might have hundreds, you might have thousands of people at it. And you might have one or two people that are going, you know what, it's time to torch everything. Think that we're not allowing this to go ahead. And what he's doing is he's zoning in on certain behaviour that the bulk of the Irish population will find slightly repugnant, up until the point where it's their area. Okay, but looking in from outside, Irish people will claim to be repulsed by certain types of behaviour. Okay, so he's zoning in on that, and he's hoping to win the hearts and minds of, not the minds necessarily, but the hearts. He's hoping to catch your feelings and link your dislike for criminality onto what he's promoting. So if you're against criminality, then you must be for what Simon Harris is doing, which is also criminal. Okay, the government are the custodians of the land of this country for the Irish people. They do not get to dictate what happens and when and who goes in where for eternity. Okay, as much as they like to claim that they do. And you'll notice as well over the last while, they're starting to reference the state as if it's a third party thing, as if it's an objective thing. It's not really. Okay, the state is a bunch of ideas that a group of people have agreed on. Okay, so when he's implementing the state and all these things, he's telling you we have massive control over nearly every layer of society, to the point where we can distinguish that level of control as a separate entity altogether, and we label that the state. Okay,
Of people responsible for that, the thugs and the criminals, and any
grand. So if he was being an objective human being and a fair human being, what he'd say was like, look, there's obviously rogue elements from my perspective, there's obviously rogue elements in the protest who took the opportunity to engage in whatever he says they engaged in, or whatever they did engage in, or whether they didn't, or whatever the case is. But I also understand that there's a large number of Irish people who are worried and concerned and scared about what's going on, about what my government are doing to them. And we will go and talk to them people. And if it's a case where they're adamant that they don't want this, then we will stop that, because it's my job to serve the Irish people. But he doesn't do this.
thing else that deviates from this. I'm really getting so sick and tired of this. People
Getting so sick of this, tired of this. Getting so sick and tired of this in this country. What exactly? That people aren't going along with what you say they should go along with.
turn up outside politicians' homes with balaclavas and people in public and media discourse of protest.
Okay. So if people turn up outside his home in balaclavas, then it's not allowed to be called a protest. Okay. So if people turn up in the middle of the night with balaclavas on, and they go into a site with no identification, and they start tearing it up, is that called construction work? Because what he's doing here is trying to play one side in one way and another side the other. So he's sending people in, security teams, with balaclavas. Some of them are from the north of Ireland. They're not even technically from this country that he's in charge of, technically, or quote, leading. They're coming in here. They're getting a little bit heavy-handed and cheeky with locals, and they're wearing balaclavas. But that's still considered legitimate work from Simon's perspective. But if Irish people decide to wear the same attire and engage in their constitutionally protected right to protest, well, no, that's different. That's illegal stuff.
What form of community engagement does anybody in this country think we could have put in place to tell someone not to throw a petrol bomb in a guard?
Okay, so that's a straw man. What he's doing there is he is bundling up any and all concerns of Irish local people, and he's equating that with throwing a petrol bomb at a guard. Okay, he's just zoning in on the one or two acts that will turn Irish people against legitimate protest, against this horrendous thing that he's doing. So what line of community engagement could the government have done to have stopped this going ahead? Listen to the people. That's what you could have done. Your job. That's the level of community engagement we want from the government. Just do your job. The people are saying no. It's your job to enact the will of the people. So pull these people out and say, you know what? We're creating this tense situation and we're going to stop it now. But he doesn't. He goes on to smear and label or try and couch labels in the category of criminals, okay?
Or not to throw a brick.
Or not
to set a digger on fire. Or not to injure a security guard. Who got up yesterday morning, pulled his whole door behind him and went to work.
Was this the same security guard that went into work and started his digger, Harris, was it?
There's really important issues that we need to do better on around community. Absolutely. Minister Gorman does a huge amount of work on community engagement.
So you can see how expressive and how elaborate he is when he's talking about the negatives of the protest. But when it comes, and this is based on the question as well, so what level of responsibility has this government got for what we're seeing around Ireland? He says none at all, nothing to do with me. But we understand that there's problems in this country and we need to do better. In what way, Harris? Oh, well, Mr. O'Gorman will tell you all about that. Okay.
Mr. O'Gorman, Mr. O'Brien, I supported fully. Listening to communities, talking about resources.
Listening to communities, talking with them, talking about resources. Okay, so this is not what people want. People don't want you to come here and say, you know what, if you leave these people in, we'll put up a new basketball hoop for you. This is not what people want, to be bought off with pound shop merchandise. This is not what people want. People want these men gone and stopped from coming in here. But he doesn't let that avenue open as a legitimate area of conversation between the government and the local people. So he's telling you there, like, look, we can tick these boxes all you want, but ultimately nothing's going to change. I'm going to continue plowing ahead with what we're doing because there's a lot of people making a lot of money off it, and I'm only a small man in this whole scale of things. So if I say no, I'm under severe pressure. The pressure I'll be under, Harris will be, is a lot more than people are protesting outside his front gate, right? So that's the pressure he's afraid of.
What we saw yesterday was no more anything to do with that than the manner. And we got to be really careful because I'm worried about this. And I am worried.
To be really careful, and he's worried about it.
Because I'm worried when we conflate thuggery, lawlessness, far right with decent people in our democracy.
So, like, listen to this fella. So he's worried that the legitimate people and protesters might be conflated with, quote, thuggery and criminality. After spending the last 2 minutes of doing just that. That's what he's worried about. When he's just engaged in the same activity. So this man is a walking projection, right? So he said yesterday as well that there's a small group of people in this country that think that they can overstep the law and they can do whatever they want on this land. That's him and his government. And now today he's doing the same thing. He's blaming other people for what he himself is engaged in. So he's really worried that ordinary good people will be conflated with thuggery and criminality. He's just spent the last couple of minutes doing just that.
And I think one of the most encouraging things that happened last night was this: that local people in Coolock called for calm. That local people in Coolock said, "This ain't us." That local people in Coolock had to go out and clean up after the thugs.
Like, just listen to this fella, like. So it's an amazing thing that people from this area went out and said, let's be calm. This ain't us. Okay? And what he's doing here, ultimately, I'll finish on this. Ultimately, what he's at here is what Eamon de Valera was doing when Michael Collins was over in England that time. He's sowing the seeds of discontent, and he's trying to channel legitimate animosity and legitimate anger at Irish people. That's what he's doing here. He's trying to he's using his position as the Taoiseach of Ireland to try and turn certain elements of the Irish population against other elements of the Irish population. This man is stoking the flames of a civil war. That's what he's doing. Make no bones about it. That is all that he's doing. And he's telling you that's what he's doing as well. Because he's projecting out. His projections don't fail. So we'll finish off here.
So this is not about communities, and it is not a reflection on the people in Collusion. This is about people that many of you in this room know who they are. The guards know who they are. And they're trying to rip communities apart in this country. And let me tell you this. If they do it, wherever they do it, however often they do it, they will meet the full rigors of the law. And I want to say this. I want to say thank you to the Guard.
Yeah, of course he does. So, again, projection. This man is stating that these people whose names he doesn't want to say, why wouldn't he say those names? He seems to imply that he knows who's doing this. Why not say those names? Because he knows that he'd be getting involved in defamation at that stage, okay? So he's up to the point where he can't go any further, barring legal consequences to it, right? So he's implying that these people are well known. Therefore, anyone who's well known on the protesting side of things, they're a criminal. That's what he's implying here. That's the implication of what he's saying, right? And now he wants to thank the guards. I don't know if you've seen the same videos I have, but there's nothing to be thanking them about.
Thank you to the men and women of Gardaí who put themselves in harm's way. So the only group of people responsible for the lawlessness are those who engage in lawlessness.
Again, the question, he wasn't asked about lawlessness, he was asked about the situation itself. So he's taken a hyper-focused lens on one area where he knows he might gain a bit of ground, instead of pulling back and looking at the bigger picture, which is communities are being destroyed because of this man's government policies. And he's too weak, and I would say stupid, to realise that he's been set up as a fall guy here. Because all of this is on his shoulders and none of it is going well. The country is falling apart. People are getting angry. People are losing hope in the potential of a peaceful resolution to this thing. And this man, is spending his time not trying to quench them fires, trying to stoke them even more, and trying to use them, trying to divert the energy from that away from the government and onto fellow Irish people. Disgraceful.